Hello, welcome back to the Board Games 4K YouTube channel. And this is a channel where we give you reviews, playthroughs, unboxings, and we generally like to talk a load of bollocks about tabletop gaming in general. And in this video we're going to be talking about our top 10 heavy games, and what we mean by heavy is that they aren't light games, right? Just remember, we haven't played every single heavy game that's ever been created by a human being in the universe. So if your favourite heavy game isn't on this list, then tough shit. But remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel. Leave a comment in that section down below. I'll see you after this.
Board Games 4K.
So number one on this list is a game that we reviewed just a couple of weeks ago. It's Vinos, and this is designed by a geezer from Portugal called Vital Lacerda. This is a game that is themed around making wine and flogging wine to internal and external markets. It's sort of like a action selection game that sees you take different actions. You'll be acquiring vineyards, you'll be enlisting the help of certain wine experts that will help you boost the value of your wine, that will allow you to enter these wines into a sort of strange little wine fair that will give you points, and they'll allow you to win the game, right? What we like about Vinos is once you get over the initial complexity of the game, it is quite a smooth experience. It flows really well. There's only ever going to be a minimum of 12 actions, but you can take more. Part of the fun is trying to cram as many different possibilities into those 6 actions, and we really do like it a lot. It sort of gets compared a little bit unfairly with Viticulture because they are two different games but similar in the same sort of theme, right? But anyway, we love Vinos, and that's our number 10. So number 9 on our heavy games list is a game about the German elections. And who would have thought that A, Germany would make a fun theme for a board game, and B, an election would make a fun board game. So if you've got those two melded together, the chances of a fantastic game appearing out of two exponentially dross themes would be slim to none. But no, the guy, I can't remember who designed Dimacca, Karl-Heinz Schmiel, has designed a truly original and timeless game. It's very recently got a reprint via Kickstarter, and what this sees you do is you'll be trying to influence the public into supporting your party via different types of votes. So you might end up trying to get them to back you on your square tomato type thing, right? Or you might end up getting into a little bit of hot water with a couple of political scandals. Now, that's not true. There's no political scandals in Dimacca, but Dimacca does sort of, I say, accurately represent an election. It's probably the closest you're going to get to a decent election game. It is really, really complicated when you first start playing it, but once you get over that hump, then Dimacca works really, really well, and it's very highly recommended from me. So number 8 on this list, and forgive me for putting this on the list because it is a game that is currently and probably will always be out of print. It's Forbidden Stars. We don't really like talking about out of print games because I know that people get upset because they really do like to sort of get older games that are on this list, but Forbidden Stars is worthy on this list. So what's Forbidden Stars sees you do? It sees you take control of a traditional Warhammer faction, and you'll be vying for control of different planets, taking their resources, moving around the galaxy to fulfill objectives. And this is like an action selection game again, but one of the novel things about Forbidden Stars is that when you take an action, you'll be placing your action disc in a stack, and then you'll be resolving the stack from top to bottom. So you've got to be very mindful about the fact that where you go first is where you're going to be taking the action last, right? It's got miniatures, it's got that wonderful Warhammer 40,000 theme, and yeah, it's just a real shame that Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight came to blows, had a punch up, and went their separate ways because there was no clear winner. That's Forbidden Stars. That's our number 8. So number 7 on this list is a game that is basically themeless, but it took the world by storm a few years ago. It's Terra Mystica. This reminds us sort of like of Settlers of Catan. It's got those tiny little buildings that, I can't remember what settlements are they or something. You've got temples, and you've got other types of buildings you can build. You'll be terraforming the land to match your faction's particular comfort zone, right? And all the while you'll be increasing your ability to move over water. One of the things that we really enjoy about this game is that the victory conditions change from game to game. The things that give you points round to round are always changing from game to game. So it's very, very difficult to solidify your strategy because there's so many different variables that can change every time you play it, right? There's so many different factions for this one. There's 2 expansions. There's a Fire and Ice expansion, and there's something to do with shipping, which you haven't got. But there's so many different variations, so many different tactics you can use, and it is a wonderful, wonderful game. That's Terra Mystica. So number 6 on this list is a sort of a game that involves a little bit of time traveling. It's Anachrony, right? And this is a game where you'll be placing your workers out onto the board to take actions to best prepare yourself for the inevitability of the apocalypse. The apocalypse will always happen in this game, but what you can do, you can send your workers into the future to take resources from the future, but then you'll have to pay the resources back when you actually get to that point in the future from the past, right? Okay, it's sort of like a loan system in a sense, but when we first played this, that mechanism about borrowing from the future, it blew our minds, right? And Anachrony, you got the option of these wonderful miniatures that really don't do anything, but it does add a wonderful ode of bling to the game. But Anachrony is a deep, complex, rich beast of a game, and if you ain't played it, then we recommend you play it. That's our number 6. Number 5 on this list is an oldie but a goldie. It is Caelus. It's the game with the Grumpy King that always scares me to death when I pull it out of the shelf. But in Caelus, what it sees you do, it sees you placing your workers out onto a track that goes from the fields down at the bottom all the way up to the Castle Caelus or whatever it is at the top of the board. As time goes on, you'll be placing out more spaces to go, and you'll be attempting to help the Grumpy King build first of all the dungeons and then the fortifications and the different parts of the castle that will give you victory points, right? And you've also got to be aware that you've got the provost, that pesky little provost that is going to be moving up and down the track and stopping you taking actions if you're in a certain position on the track. Caelus was lauded as one of the first worker placement games, or maybe one of the most popular worker placement games. I don't think it was the first worker placement game, but we really do love Caelus. It holds up today. A lot of people have moved on from it, but we still love to play this one, and that's Caelus. That's our number 5. So number 4 is a game by Mage Knight. This is the geezer who designed Concordia. One of his earlier games makes it onto this list. It is Imperial. So in Imperial, what you'll be doing, you'll be spending your money to acquire bonds that will allow you to assist different countries and help them exert their power and influence on a map of Europe, right? So you'll be building ground units, you'll be building naval units, you'll be buying bonds, and you'll be getting dividends from the bonds, right? This game operates around a rondel. You'll be putting your marker on the rondel, moving a certain amount of spaces, but you may have to pay an excess charge for moving further around the rondel. This game was rethemed with a more futuristic theme, and I think it was Imperial 2000 and something or other. I can't remember what it was, but sod that. We like the original version of Imperial. It's got a better theme, and it really does get quite tactical and quite strategic. And if you ain't played any of Mage Knight's rondel games, then Imperial is a very, very nice place to start if you want a heavy experience. You know what I mean? So number 3 on this list is a game that is based upon another favourite game of ours called Friedrich. It's not Friedrich, it's Maria, right? This is a 3-player only game. Well, you can play it with 2, but essentially it's a 3-player game, right? So what you'll be doing, each player will control 2 factions in this game, right? But the player that controls Friedrich will be what the rules call a schizophrenic leader, right? So they'll be aligned with one of their opponents, yeah? So not only are they sort of fighting for themselves, they're fighting against one of their opponent's factions, but they'll be fighting with one of their opponent's factions, right? But essentially what you'll be doing, you'll be using a certain amount of points to buy army units, and then you'll be moving those army units around the board to fulfill a certain number of objectives that will allow you to win the game. But one of the things that is novel about this and Friedrich is that the board is divided into a grid, and each grid has a traditional card suit on it. You'll have to use that card suit when you engage in combat through a specific deck of cards. And the thing that differentiates Maria from Friedrich is that it's got a political board where you can influence the game's proceedings based on different historical events and different personalities that were prevalent at the time, yeah? And there's also trigger points, like if Silesia gets annexed, that will give certain factions some points. But really, Maria has to be probably the best 3-player only game ever created. Maybe it is the only 3-player only game ever created, but if you haven't played Maria, it is a little bit dry. I know you're going to have a load of those weirdo wargamer geeks going, whatever. If you can get over that, and you want a complex 3-player game, Maria is right up your back alley. So number 2 on this list is a game that was our number 1 game for quite a number of years, running. It's Christoph Bollinger's Archipelago. And in Archipelago, what you'll be doing, you'll be building units, moving them around the map, stealing resources that will allow you to build more units. You'll be building buildings, you'll be exploring, you'll be using different personalities and different events to build structures to give you a leg up over people if you're using the War and Peace expansion, which can get a little bit nasty with a lot of take that, yeah. But Archipelago looks absolutely gorgeous. It's a complex game. It's one of Christoph Bollinger's finest games, and we still love playing Archipelago, even though it's now nearly 9 years old, right? So if you haven't played Archipelago, we highly recommend that you go out and get it. But there you go, that's our number 2. So number 1 on our list of our top 10 heavy games is Vlaada Chvátil's Mage Knight. This game has everything. It's got deck building, it's got exploration, it's got card drafting, it's got magic spells to use, it's got combat, it's got a wealth of different types of enemies, different locations to visit. There's 3 expansions. You've got the Crown Character expansion, which I suppose isn't an expansion, but it is. Then you've got the Lost Legion expansion, which opens a game up immeasurably and gives you even more stuff to do. And then you've got the Shades of Tesla expansion, which gives you more options. It's not as essential as the Lost Legion, but it's still pretty strong. This game did suffer from a few misprints and a few component issues that have now been resolved, but that doesn't detract from the fact that Mage Knight, A, is our favourite solo game of all time, and B, is our favourite heavy game of all time. And this qualifies as heavy because it's got 2 bleeding rule books, yeah, not 1 but 2, and they are heavy in themselves. Yeah, you've got one that teaches you how to read the rule book, and then you've got a rule book that teaches you how to play the game, right? And if you ain't played Mage Knight, I think the separate portions of the game are now out of print, so you're gonna have to get yourself the ultimate edition, which is quite expensive. It's about 100 quid, 90 quid. It's worth every penny. You're gonna bring every last drop of game out of that set. Mage Knight is deservedly our number 1 heavy game of all time. So there you go, that's our top 10 heavy games. Like we said, we haven't played all the heavy games designed by human beings in the known universe. So if your game isn't on this list, do us a favour and tell us what we missed in the comments down below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to this channel. Leave a comment in that section down below. We'll see you next Tuesday.